Welcome back to the live coverage of YCS London 2018, where we are ready to start round number 6. I can see we have some people who are excited about this match. I'm happy you are. We got two great players. They're both on an X1 record, so they need to win this to stay in competition. Starting in the red corner, we got Lukas Prinz from Germany. Hello, Lukas.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. Score's nice. Didn't expect to be that good today, but it happens.
How did you take the loss?
I misplayed, so my fault.
Okay, so how do you bounce back after the loss?
Take a few minutes, think about how I could have played correctly, and yeah, just try to go into the next round without tilting.
You are somewhat known for playing crazier decks, very often zombie. Did you bring something crazy today?
I don't think it's that crazy.
Okay.
It's not zombies.
It's not something. He's just saying that to throw his opponent off guard. Thank you very much. You can have a seat in the red chair. His opponent is Sault from the UK. Jake, hi. How are you doing?
Bit nervous. Never had a feature match before, so...
It's almost the same thing as a normal match, with the difference that there's nobody sitting next to you, there's bright lights on you, there's a stage and 100 people watching. It's pretty much the same thing. How did you go into this tournament? How did you prepare?
Me and my friend Ahmed, we were building our deck together for the past 3 or 4 weeks, maybe longer. He seemed really, really good in testing, but then we were just a little bit unsure of how it was actually going to pan out. But we both went XO. So.
Okay. So
up until last round.
So far, so good. I mean, you did take one loss. How did you bounce back from that loss?
It was the last round. I've just well, I've already done better than I thought I was going to do for the event, so I'm not going to really dwell on it. So.
All right. So Lukas has been in a couple of feature matches. Are you afraid right now? Are you intimidated by him, or do you not know him?
I've never heard of you personally, but if I let him intimidate me, then he's just going to beat me.
It was a loaded question. This was the answer I was looking for. Have a seat. So both our players are almost ready. We just have to conduct a die roll to decide who goes first. So Lukas is rolling a 6. We see a lot of 6s today, and a 4. So Lukas can decide. And he wants to go first. All right, Lukas is going first. We got all the information here. Players are ready. So let's take you guys to Dom Galizia, as well as Tom Payne, our casters for the round.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Oliver. Yes, we're here for round 6 at YCS London. As you can see, a lot of preparation goes into these sorts of events, Tom.
Yeah, some players do really try prepare very well and very thoroughly. So we can see, we saw yesterday. It was yesterday. I did the deck profile with Ahmed, but that won't be featured until tomorrow. So we actually did a deck profile with the player that Jake was mentioning, Ahmed, who, to be honest, their deck looked really cool, which is why I was keen to get it on the feature table.
And I mean, that is such a common thing in the community, right? It's you meeting up with friends, you developing relationships, you're looking to improve your deck all the time. From your experience, you've played a lot of YCS events.
I have.
I know you have. Is this a sort of thing that you go to weekly? Is it almost daily? How do you do that?
Nowadays, you've got mobile communication. You can just talk to your friends all the time. You come up with an idea, you try it out, you think about it. You maybe solitaire some combos.
And like Luke was saying that he's prepped with the deck for the past 3 weeks or so. Is that something that you're familiar with?
Oh yeah. You definitely prepare for a tournament for a couple of weeks.
You'll pick a deck, you'll stick with it, you'll develop it over some time.
I try loads of decks, but if I find something cool, then I'll definitely practice it a lot until I've decided. But until I've decided, I'll try everything.
Well, I think we're just about ready for the match, so if we can head over to the table. Yeah, so as mentioned, Lukas is playing that Paleozoic deck again. We've seen that earlier on. Did we see Paleo today?
I don't think we've seen Paleo today.
And Jake is playing the Chaos Thunder Dragon. How do we feel about that?
It's not a deck I've seen in action before. I think it looks incredibly cool. I really like the idea of banishing Thunder Dragons with snow. I really want to see that happen.
Okay.
But obviously, we've got Lukas going first, playing the
Paleozoic build,
Paleozoic deck, which is known for just setting loads of traps, being very oppressive.
Yep.
He's gone so far as to include Artifact Sanctum, summon Artifact Scythe, and that is a really powerful card. So, I mean, but you could liken it a little bit to Dimensional Barrier to try and stop your opponent accessing the extra deck. But then Dimensional Barrier doesn't allow you to stop your opponent from link summoning. However,
Yep.
with Scythe, it just says all extra deck monsters. So he's got 3 Sanctums, he's got 3 copies of Trap Trick to get a Sanctum, all of which can just shut your opponent off from playing for a whole turn, which is really, really powerful.
Yep. Well, we see Lukas moving into summon Swap Frog.
Swap Frog is also, Swap Frog is probably the best card in the Paleozoic Frog deck. I honestly, I know this has never been tracked, but I feel like the win rate of Paleozoic Frog goes up by so much when they open with Swap Frog. It's such a powerful card. It threatens to make a totally awesome all by itself over the course of 2 turns, or if you have another water monster in your hand, it just makes one on the first turn.
And if you're Jake, you're sat there, you've come to this event, he's just told us about preparing for the event. Is he expecting to be playing Paleozoic Frogs at this stage of the event, or we know that decks progress and take people by surprise, but would he be expecting to face him? How are you preparing for that?
I think if you're a player, if you've been playing for the last couple of years, you know what Paleozoic Frog does. It was a popular deck at one point. It's gone out of popularity. I think it's sort of being power crept by other decks. It got hurt a fair amount by Master Rule 4, but I'm not sure that was the main. I think possibly it was True Draco that was really the nail in the coffin for the sort of dominance of Paleozoic Frog, because it had such a hard time against that deck. But it's going to be a deck. It's definitely capable of winning games,
Yep.
or in this case, he's won 4 already.
And I mean, totally awesome. Going back to that card, that's such a good card.
It is very unreasonable what Totally Awesome does. Sits on the board, makes more of itself if you don't answer it, or it can negate any card you like and then take control of it. It is amazingly powerful. So we're going to see what Jake's deck is capable of, but realistically, I think this Artifact Sanctum is going to be super clutch. It just kind of says no for a turn, and then the Totally Awesome will bring out more copies of itself, and then it just starts to look very hairy. So slightly awkward interactions. So he activated the Instant Fusion. So normally the idea, Sanctum gets Scythe says no extra deck, right? But Scythe is an effect which must activate. So what would happen in that situation is Instant Fusion would go Chain Link 1, Scythe would go Chain Link 2, summon Sanctum. Afterwards, Sanctum would resolve. So it wouldn't actually stop the Instant Fusion from working. Sorry, afterwards Scythe would resolve. So the Instant Fusion would already have resolved.
And is Jake feeling good about this?
I don't think he's feeling good about this. I don't think many people like to see a card which says you can't summon from the extra deck. That's a very mean card.
And do you think that the artifact tech, if you like, from
it might
Lukas
be causing the difference. I mean, it's a really good card.
Yep.
It's a Sky Striker. If you do it to Sky Striker, let's say they just normal summon I mean, it's not so bad against Ray, because Ray can chain its effect to things. But against maybe, suppose they activated Hornet Drones, and then you activate Sanctum and bring out Scythe, and they're stuck with a monster in their main zone, and they can't. Not only can they not make a link monster, but they're also stuck with a monster in their main zone. So all in all, it's just pretty brutal. I'm interested. Jake didn't bother to try and use the Millenniumized Restrict to negate Scythe. I suppose he knows that Millenniumized Restrict will get eaten up by the Toad, but when else is he going to use it? I mean, now he can't do any more. He effectively just can't really do any more plays under. That's kind of what Scythe says. It just passes a turn. It's a really powerful effect. So Lukas there just cutting the deck for the opponent. It's often it's a nice shortcut is you don't cut the deck until your opponent needs to draw a card, which is fair enough, because if you're playing like multiple search effects, you don't want to slow the game down by I'm going to activate my Thunder Dragon, and then you're like, right, I'm going to shuffle your opponent's deck, and I'm going to use the next Thunder Dragon I just used, and then that would really slow the game down. So it's quite good that players are doing this now.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards that, as you mentioned, go into the deck, and it can be that sometimes players just wait for the last point in which they've been into the deck before they offer to cut.
Yeah, so I would always wait. I would either do it at the end of the turn, or if I was about to draw a card. Oh no.
Did he just do what I think he did?
He just tribute set a Thunder Monster.
He just tribute set a Thunder Dragon. Was it a Thunder Dragon, was it? Sorry?
No, he's still got 2 Thunder Dragons in his hand.
So it was the
Thunder Dragon Hawk.
Okay.
which is not really that much better, to be honest. It's going to let him mulligan his hand. I think actually Boral Sword is a nice extra tool, which is going to make up for something that the Frog deck was lacking a little bit before, which is the ability just to leverage very quickly into an OTK. So before you know, I mean, it's not so important because the Frog deck kind of says, once you have enough stuff, you know, once you start to convert your extra frogs into extra toads, then it really doesn't matter because anything your opponent does, you can just negate with a toad. So maybe the ability to OTK isn't so important, but it does end the game in a quicker and more stylish fashion than it would otherwise have ended.
And I mean, we really see Swap Frog putting in the work there.
Yeah, so Swap Frog makes Toad, and then Toad gets another Swap Frog for next turn.
Yep.
Seems fair. I mean, in fact, if he wanted to, he could return the Scythe to his hand, and then he could set it, and then destroy it with Olanodes on his opponent's turn to put him under the Scythe again, unless he thinks he's able to OTK this turn. But if he can't OTK this turn, then that would be quite a cool play.
Because yet again, it would buy him and interrupt.
Yeah, it would buy him like another turn in which Jake really just can't do anything. So I think that would be a pretty reasonable, well, it'd be a pretty cool play to see. I'm not, to be honest though, he might just decide that he is capable of OTKing this turn and then not spin the monster back to his hand. So we will see
the first Link summon.
So you can start using these Ronin Toadins now. You just get sort of infinite Link materials as well, because they can turn any frogs in your grave into more Link materials.
And obviously that's just perfect with the Paleozoic traps, as you said earlier on.
Into XYZ materials, yeah, when the Paleos come down. But now that there's more powerful Link monsters, you're probably going to be aiming for Link summons rather than XYZ summons. We haven't seen I've even forgotten his name. The Paleozoic, it'll probably be on Lucas's deck list. Paleozoic Opabinia. It's a really cool card, but now because it's an XYZ monster that you want to make and then make another XYZ monster afterwards, it's actually like really hard to use now. I think that was why a lot of people thought that Paleo were a lot worse once Master Rule 4 had come down. So Lucas can just make a Boral Sword, which it looks like he might be doing.
He's considering it, isn't he?
It did look like 4 materials.
It did.
But I think maybe he's going to choose to use 2 Toads and a Miss Starboy rather than a Toad as Swap Frog and a Miss Starboy.
So that Swap Frog might put in more work.
Oh yeah, I mean the Swap Frog might find its way, turn into a Toad. Seems like a pretty reasonable thing to do. Good end for a Swap Frog is to sort of morph into a Toad. Oh no, he's Link summoning. Oh, has he got even more frogs in his grave? That is crazy. He had enough to make. Yeah, this is what one unanswered Toad does, apparently. It turns itself into a Miss Starboy, another Toad, and a Boral Sword.
And straight away, Jake just scoops up.
Wow, that is more than 8,000 damage
Yes.
by some margin.
But unbelievable amount of work put in by Swap Frog. I feel like that was the one that really...
Well, the thing is, like, so the Toad gives you, it says, you know, you have to answer the Toad within a turn. Otherwise, it kind of steamrolls like that. And then, so opening the Swap Frog means you get that Toad out on turn 1. And that makes a huge, huge difference. The earlier you get the Toad out. I mean, as well, it has this amazing defensive capability, but it also has this offensive capability that Lucas just showcased there.
Just the amount of materials.
Yeah.
It was just...
pretty great, huh?
The amount of frogs and toads. Yeah, must be feeling quite chuffed. So, heading into game 2, let's look at the side decks and let's talk about what they might be thinking about putting in against each other here.
Okay, so I'm seeing Twin Twisters and I'm seeing Denko Sekka. Denko Sekka is definitely jumping out at me against the Paleozoic deck.
Yep.
I mean, once again, Denko Sekka can be crippling, and the only real answer that the Paleo deck has is just drawing Swap Frog. If it draws Swap Frog, it can just make a Toad and attack over Denko Sekka. So it's one of those things like drawing Swap Frog makes the Paleo deck significantly harder to deal with. So I guess we'll find out. But I think the Denko is definitely coming in. I think the Twin Twister is definitely coming in. So I don't think Colossus really does much to the Frog deck. I think it can search with Dupe Frog, and I think that's about it. So Lukas has elected to not run Pot of Desires, not run Pot of Duality, not run Card of Demise, which are all cards we've seen in some incarnations of the Paleo Frog deck before. So he's just decided he's going to run as many traps as he can, which is quite fun.
I mean, and that is a substantial number of traps.
That is a substantial number of 31 traps.
Yep.
That's a lot of traps. So Denko is going to be pretty handy. Other than that, yeah, I would expect Denko and Twin. I don't know if anything else. He could side in Ash because Ash can negate Sanctum, but that's a fairly niche use. And I suppose he might think that he can negate his opponent's Pot of Desires, but maybe if you see the Sanctums, then you're not thinking that your opponent's running Pot of Desires, because Pot of Desires does quite heavily conflict with Sanctum, because you don't really want to banish your 1 or 2 copies of Scythe.
So we're fully expecting Jake to start here?
I'm fully expecting Jake to start, yeah.
They're just about ready. Finish siding. Lots of fine choices, and decision making can be very, very, very important, can't it? I mean, you know that firsthand, but sometimes just 1 or 2 cards here or there in the side deck can really stand you in good stead against certain rogue decks, say.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my favorite things about siding extra deck cards now. So you can side like one of them and you know you can always get it, which is one of my favorite things. Whereas if you side like one card in your side deck, it's like, mine or draw it.
Yep.
1 out of 40. Whereas extra deck cards, I love siding extra deck cards. They're always there for you, right where you need them. So it looks like Jake's going first. I can see Soul Charge, and Soul Charge is a good one.
Yeah, we can see that Lukas is opened with Impermanence, Breakthrough Skill, quite a versatile trap.
Impermanence is quite good because there really aren't that many interruptions that you would expect a Paleozoic Frog deck to put out other than the 3 Impermanence. So Impermanence is nice because it's both a hand trap and a trap, as opposed to hand traps, which are monsters. And most decks would rather have the monster in their deck, but Paleo would much rather have it as a trap.
Yep. Of course, because it can then activate...
Activate the Paleo monsters, yeah. And same for Altergeist, it can activate the Multifaker.
So here we see Jake's made a strong start, looks like.
So yeah, this Soul Charge is going to bring back quite a few monsters, I'm going to guess. I'm not entirely sure what his sort of end goal is with this hand. So I guess we'll wait and see. I don't even know if he's going to use the Soul Charge.
He seems to be pretty confident.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's got a Soul Charge, and Soul Charge is good. Thing is, like, if he just makes a big board, even if the monsters don't do that much against Paleo, he can just sort of attack with all of them and then go from there. Which is, you know, a good way of winning the game, is attacking with all of your monsters until your opponent doesn't have any life points. Paleozoic not being the most proactive deck. So, you know, just landing a big board. If you're wanting your traps to deal with your opponent's monsters one at a time, and they've just got a load of monsters with big attack points, you might struggle to deal with that.
Yeah, it feels like the Paleozoic deck really wants to be going first all the time. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's...
If I was playing Paleozoic, I would want to go first. So he's got Soul Charge. I'm just interested to see what he would, what link monsters he would bring out with the Soul, what he would aim to bring out. So he could try and make Curious, and then Curious will get shut down by Infinite Impermanence, but he doesn't know that. So I think he's probably going to try and make Curious. Because if he could make Curious, then he could put Snow in the graveyard, and then he would have Snow to potentially banish multiple Thunder Dragons. And that's a really, really powerful play. So he's got the Millenniumized Restrict as well, which looks like it could potentially negate a hand trap. However, it doesn't negate Infinite Impermanence, because Infinite Impermanence is not a monster effect.
But this is exactly where all that testing prior to an event comes in, right?
Yeah.
He will have played so many games. He will have opened so many different hands that he kind of knows what to do in every situation.
Yeah, the Millenniumized Restrict would be really cool here to negate a potential Ash Blossom, but it's not going to negate a potential Ash Blossom because it's one of the cool things about Infinite Impermanence is that it's not a monster effect. So a lot of the ways people try and find around monster effects, such as Neospatian Aquadolphin, Caught by the Grave, Millenniumized Restrict, can't stop it. Which is, yeah, it's pretty sad for Jake. So I'm fully expecting the Infinite Impermanence to negate the Curious. I think your opponent sending any monster they like from their deck to the graveyard is not an effect that you want to happen. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, there we go.
And that seems like a great card to be dropping.
Oh yeah. So him sending Snow now would be a really big deal, I think, because it would allow him to trigger all the Thunder Dragon monsters in his graveyard yet again. Whereas now, I mean, I wouldn't say Jake's sort of settling for his board of Curious, Double Colossus, Millenniumized Restrict, but it could have been that much cooler with the Snow. So I think
he just passes.
He just passes. I think that's fairly sensible, because he could have just made a second Colossus. He could have activated the Thunder Dragon fusion, but honestly, like, the Thunder Dragon boss monsters don't really affect Paleo that much. So I think it's totally reasonable to just leave that Thunder Dragon Roar on the field so you can trigger its effect on a later turn when it's sent to the graveyard.
And here we see the Swap Frog.
Yet again?
Yet again. Straight to battle phase, it seems.
Yes, you don't want to activate the effect of Swap Frog here, because otherwise Millenniumized Restrict could be chained and kill the Swap Frog. But I think that...
So how's Lukas feeling right now? He's just seen his opponent assemble a pretty strong field. He could see that his opponent was really trying to push. He's activated the Impermanence. What's he thinking right now?
Yeah, I think he can have a plan, because he's got the Sanctum, and Sanctum is going to shut your opponent down a fair bit. It's going to stop... Yeah, it's going to stop a lot of potential plays from Jake. And then he's got the Olanodes. Olanodes might be... Oh, it's not Olanodes, it's Dynamiscus, isn't it? Okay. So then he's got the Dynamiscus to get a Paleozoic Trap in the grave, followed by the Swap Frog to follow up next turn and turn into a Toad. So I'm guessing that's his sort of idea right now. And then we're going to have to see whether Jake can put enough pressure on him to sort of halt that plan from being viable. But it's really difficult to be putting a lot of pressure on your opponent when you can't summon from the extra deck. You know, pressure normally comes from extra deck monsters.
And just talking about something that we spoke about earlier on, the synergy of this Thunder Dragon deck. I mean, it's really quite something, isn't it?
It is really cool to me.
I mean, even the spell card like that we just saw there, Allure of Darkness. Was that Allure of Darkness?
That was Allure of Darkness.
That is
it's
a
really
considerable
cool
card to be
Dragons,
playing in Thunder Dragon.
It's really cool because you just get free, like, so you draw 2 and then banish 1 and then you use the one you banished.
Yeah, it just seems something.
It's just a +1 that also digs through your deck. I mean, maybe if he'd used the Thunder Dragon Fusion on the last turn, he could have banished it this turn to search out Denko Sekka, which probably would have been fairly threatening to Lukas. But he chose... I mean, I can understand wanting to hold it back. It's a pretty powerful card. But now he can't activate it this turn because of that scythe on the board. He can just summon a load of monsters and attack. Which, to be fair, is not the worst of plans.
And there's a lot of cards to keep, like, maintain knowledge about, it seems, because we see Jake going through the graveyard time and time again and really making sure he knows what's in there. And
yeah, he was just deciding what he wanted to summon off the Thunder Dragon Hawk. Normally makes more sense to summon a banished monster because banished monsters are harder to sort of use than graveyard monsters. So you can use like chaos monsters to banish monsters from your graveyard, whereas you can't do that with the monsters that are already banished. But yeah, it can be quite difficult to keep track of all the things, especially if you've got something like, you got Snow, you got Malicious, you got like Necrogarden, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, any number of cards that you could have in the grave can start to get more challenging.
So he goes straight into the battle phase. Takes away that Scythe, which I'm sure he's glad to see the back of.
I mean, the effects resolved.
But
so the question, I think, for Lukas, he has to use the Dynamiscus during the battle phase to stop himself losing all of his life points. So he has to decide what is the best card to use it on. And to my mind, it's either going to be the Curious or the Colossus. And probably the Colossus. Yeah, there we go. So the Colossus would be the one that's hardest to get off the board otherwise. So it makes sense. But Curious is a possibility because you want to, if you banish the Curious, like if you destroy the Curious with a card effect, then or by battle actually, then your opponent gets to add any card from their grave to their hand. The lesser known other effect of Curious. And it's a pretty good effect, like any card from your graveyard. You can reuse like Soul Charge, for example. You can reuse, I don't know. I mean, Soul Charge is probably not so strong when you're only on 3,000 life points, but it's not bad. So Luke's going to have to figure out if one Toad's going to get him there. And he's decided a Toad is not going to get him there.
so it looks like we go to game 3. Jake just pulls it back. 1-1, 1 win each.
Yeah, even with that Scythe, like, once your opponent's got a bunch of monsters out anyway, then the Scythe is significantly less cool. You know, it's like...
And it was a pretty impressive field. Even after the impermanence, it was still quite something to get through.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like... Again, it depends on what kind of deck you're playing against. So if you're playing against a deck that's super proactive, like Goki, like Danger, then that board of monsters which float. I mean, if you're playing a deck like Goki, let's say, just for example, you don't care about what your opponent's cards are doing unless they're stopping what you're doing, because what you're doing ultimately is going to end up to be way more powerful if left uninterrupted. Whereas against the Paleozoic deck, they have a lot of little interruptions. So what the board that Jake had, which is a load of monsters that are slightly hard to kill and then float as well, so they get these extra search effects, is actually really powerful. Even though they're not doing that much proactively, they're just kind of there, and they have to be... It's very difficult to get rid of them efficiently. So
these guys are 4-1.
Yeah.
This is, they're 1-1 in this match. What's going through their heads, Tom? Like,
I think Lukas is probably happy because he gets to go first.
Yep.
I think Jake is probably thinking, I really want to draw Denko Sekka, and Lukas is probably thinking, I really want to draw Artifact Sanctum.
Okay.
And maybe the Swap Frog again. Like, again, opening Swap Frog is that one thing that can it really makes your opponent's job a lot harder.
Yep.
Because, again, like, Denko Sekka could potentially shut off any interruptions from your opponent. But then if you've already got the Swap Frog, then you've already got the Toad out. So the Toad not only threatens to attack over the Denko Sekka, but it also provides an extra negation that's not in the form of a trap card.
And a win would be massive. It would take one of them to 5-1 or one of them to 4-2, which, thinking about day 2, it starts to play tricks and on your mind. And how do you deal with that as a player? Do you just focus on the current game?
At any point, yeah, I'm just trying to win the game I'm playing realistically.
Okay. Do you ever get that urge to think about other things when you're playing?
I mean, you might, but I don't know. When you're playing a game like you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh, it's quite easy to focus on the game of Yu-Gi-Oh because you do it like you're here because you like playing Yu-Gi-Oh, right? You just play the game in front of you.
Couldn't agree more. No, but just wondered if you had any personal experience from like when you're actually playing, and does that pressure build to such a point in which it impedes your current decision making or anything of the sort?
Honestly, I think in between rounds you might get beat up. You might think, oh my god, I've got to win. Like, so if you lose this round, most of the time at a large event like this, you're expecting that you can only afford to lose 2 rounds if you want to have a chance of making it into the top cut. So if you lose a round like this, you might be a bit scared. You might be a bit demotivated. But I guess like in between rounds, you might sit on you. But when you're in the round, I think you're probably just gonna go for it. So we do see that Denko Sekka in the hand of Jake.
Yep.
And again, like if Lukas is just going to be setting 4 and passing, then Denko Sekka is going to be pretty brutal.
And Obviously, he doesn't know what's in Jake's hand, but that could be
He
the...
doesn't. So I'm not sure what all of the cards in his hand. So so given he's got 2 mistake, it would probably make some amount of sense for him just to flip 1 immediately, fearing the Denko Sekka, rather than waiting for an opponent to search. I mean, to be honest, that's probably what I would do. But I mean, I can see his hand.
Yep.
But when you've got like...
Do you think that would be a natural go-to play?
Yeah, I mean, ever since Denko Sekka's been a card which switches off all of your traps immediately, you know that if you activate...
And the crowd's reacting to that. So, I mean, they think that's an important play.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Having the Denko against multiple sets is absolutely massive. So, yeah, if he'd flipped the mistake before, then it would already be live. Not to say that he really can't do anything anyway under the Denko Sekka. So maybe it was just, I lose to Denko, so I'll just lose to Denko, even with I lose to Denko, or I lose to Denko a bit slower. Realistically, at this point, there's no one card he can draw that actually kills the Denko Sekka as well, because all of his deck is either traps or frogs.
Yep.
And no frog has got more attack than Denko, so those cards are just out of the game. So even if he'd flipped the mistake, I feel like Jake would have enough time to kind of just do what he wanted anyway.
And he's frantically shuffling now. So is he plotting how to construct 8,000 points worth of damage here? Can he do that?
He probably can, but he's still got a couple of allures in his hand, so he's probably going to play those first before he makes any more plans. I don't know what he banished. I'm interested he didn't banish Thunder Dragon Hawk. Thunder Dragon... he banished Armageddon Knight. I mean, he can't normal summon it this turn.
Because he's used the Denko.
Because he's used the Denko. So... But he could have banished Thunder Dragon Dark to search any Thunder Dragon if he'd wanted to.
But, I mean, drawing multiple Allure of Darkness as well after that Denko play, he's really going to go through his deck, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of... He's seeing a lot of cards from his deck.
Yeah, I think this is kind of this has been a thing for Paleozoic as long as Denko has been a card. It's like Denko can just steal games from you, and I guess you kind of just have to deal with this. Again, like, the Thunder Dragons are another deck which... Thunder Dragons make such excellent use of Denko Sekka. It can search Denko Sekka. It can, it can use it as a way to summon Colossus, even if it doesn't have an optimal hand. So I think Denko Sekka is even more of a card that's going to haunt you if you're running Paleozoic against Thunder Dragons, because you just know it plays so smoothly with the deck, and it's not only searchable, but it's, I don't know, it just kind of does everything.
It just seems immense right now.
It just fits with the deck.
If you're looking at Jake's play, is he in autopilot mode now? After testing so much before the event, having played that Denko now, does he know exactly what he needs to do to take the match at this point, do you think?
I expect he does. I expect he's probably just thinking about how to get that damage on the board.
He's just moving from one card to the next. There's very little time between playing cards.
I'm wondering what he's going to... I think he's used all of his Thunder Dragons. He's used the banish effects. So he's used the search effect of Dragonhawk and the banish effect of... Oh no, he's not. Okay. He was just he's just thinking of what he was going to summon with Dragon Roar. So yeah, I'm guessing here he makes a Link Monster and then he activates Thunder Dragon Fusion to summon Titan, and then that is enough to attack the game.
And he looks like he's going to take this. He looks like it. Once he drew that Denko, like you said, I mean, he just looked confident once he played that, right? It's a pretty brutal card. Yeah, he must be thinking that he's won at that point already.
I think if you summon it against 4 sets and there's no response, against the Paleo deck, you kind of know that the game is definitely in yours to lose, I guess. Like, they can't use any of their sets. That's pretty good. He can't use his whole hand. Basically, it's been shut down, so yeah. I don't actually know what... Is Thunder Dragon Titan light or dark? I know Colossus is dark. I mean, it doesn't really matter, because... So the Wee Witch Apprentice will increase the attack dark monsters and decrease the attack of dark monsters, but it doesn't. I'm pretty sure that is 8,000 damage.
And so he goes to the battle phase. He's looking. They're doing the maths now.
Yeah, I mean, the Wee Witch's Apprentice might make the maths a little bit more complicated because it's adding and subtracting attack from various monsters on the field. But I'm pretty sure it's 8,000 damage. Yeah, there we go.
There's the handshake. So Jake takes it with those Thunder Dragons. Plenty of fusions and link summons there on the field at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit more in the post-match. So there we have it. Jake takes the match 2-1, coming back from the first.
I mean, the first game was pretty brutal.
That Swap Frog putting in the work.
Yeah, the Swap Frog plus Water plus Sanctum is just nasty, yeah.
Yeah, really. And I mean,
I'm not sure there's any deck that's going to stand up to that, realistically.
So much work put in by the Swap Frog. I've mentioned it a load of time, but the amount of materials that it put in the graveyard for him to just take that game and push through. And then obviously the Boral Load at the end as well.
Boral Sword.
Boral Sword, sorry.
Boral Load's still pretty good, though.
It is. Game 2, we just see the power plays, if you like, from Jake. He just made bigger, stronger monsters that were able to stick around. And
yeah, they're difficult to get rid of effectively.
Even after the Impermanence.
Even after Impermanence on Curious, yeah, which on the face of it looks to be pretty nasty, but Paleo, again, it's when you're not a proactive deck and your opponent just ended with a bunch of monsters, it can be really challenging to get back into the game. So Paleo in the past might have included cards like Mirror Force or something, but I mean, that's just so subpar in most situations except ones like that.
And
I can see why you wouldn't want to run it.
And game 3, there was no doubt. The MVP was Denko Saka.
The MVP was definitely
He drew
Denko.
it. You called it in the first game. You said, you know, he's probably going to side this in after the first game. He drew it in the third game. He plays it. The crowd knew at that point.
Everyone knows, yeah. Denko shutting off all of your opponent's hand is pretty unreasonable.
And then it was just draw after draw with Allure, summoning Fusion Monster and Link Monster one after the other. And
honestly,
Jake
I think he could have just summoned the Denko Sekka and attacked with it 5 times, probably in one.
But he takes it. That's all
with
that
a bit more style. He OTK'd.
And he was nervous. You could tell that Jake was nervous before. So without further ado, let's head over and have a conversation with Jake.
Well, let's ask the man himself. Let's hear it from Jake Sault. These guys just claimed you seemed very nervous at the table.
Absolutely. To be honest, I sort of just zoned out. I was just sort of playing cards as I could see them being live. I don't know. I couldn't even explain it. I don't think I deserved to win the match at all, to be honest. I can think of about 6 misplays I did throughout the whole match.
Right. But sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes the cards are falling in the places, in all the right places. Now let's quickly recap the match. The first game. How did that go for you?
Well, initially I saw my 5-hand. I think it was something like Tsuchinoko, Thunder Dragon, Instant Fusion. I think there might have been a Hawk there and maybe a Gold Talk or something like that. Initially I thought it was quite good. The second he summoned the Swap Frog. I had to double take up my hand in case of anything like Rivalry or anything like that. And then when he bounced it back, discarded the Ronin, my hand was starting to look a lot worse. And then when he bounced, and then whenever the second Ronin hit the grave, I just sort of knew it was over. But I wanted to play it out either way to see what cards he was playing.
Yeah.
For instance, Sanctum. Sanctum's actually funny because earlier on I was talking to a friend of mine, and I actually said that I don't even mind leaving the Thunder Dragons on the field, especially Raw and Dark, because they protect your life points, they flow. So it's okay to get that sometimes, but I think it all just worked out. But
how familiar are you with the matchup against Paleo Frogs? Was it something where you're like, okay, I have a good idea how this goes, or was it a big surprise in the match itself?
When me and my friend who made the deck, we were talking about it, I said that my personal worst matchup is probably Goki. I don't really know anything about it, it's very confusing. And then I said I'm also really scared of Paleozoic, but just because of how little we've tested against it. How
do you feel about it after that match?
I feel a bit dirty for doing the soul charge, I guess.
So in that last game, the chat went absolutely crazy. When he just plays Denko Seka on the field. Some players said he should have shotgunned the mistake. What do you think?
That's what I was worried about, is because I figured that when he set all his hand and I saw the Denko, I thought that he would shotgun his floodgates, especially when I declared standby phase, because he had no monsters. There was no reason for him to be scared of a kaiju, so I think Denko was the next best one. But it's sort of like, it's 50-50, because then if he'd flipped the mistake and it would have been Twin Twister instead of Denko, it could have been different. But I don't think I didn't see any misplays that he made. I don't think he played it wrong necessarily.
Again, sometimes it just happens to be like that. You did mention it was your first YCS.
It's my first. No, it's not my first. Yeah, it is my first YCS. I was meant to come to one like 4 years ago, but I ended up actually sleeping over and didn't actually make it for the first round. So.
All right. So far, so good.
Yeah, it's a good time. The deck's performing a lot better than I thought, even when I'm misplaying. So.
Wow. Tom Payne was getting really, really excited about that deck, so I could tell, okay, there must be something to it. He was like, I really like their build. I think they put a lot of work into this, and so far it's paying dividends for you guys.
Yeah, something to note as well is that Zephyros, I think I drew 2 out of my 3 games. That is actually a card that me and my friend who were playing the deck last night, after we'd already pre-registered, we said we didn't want to play. But now we're sort of locked into it, so that's a card that we want to mess about with. But I don't think you saw Fairy Tale Snow in that game, but that's basically the reason that the deck has performed so well for us.
Is there anything else where you're like, okay, if I could change my deck right now, I would do this and this and this?
I'd probably cut Zephyros for any other card, maybe an Upstart Goblin.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Best of luck for the rest of the day and, of course, tomorrow, because chances are right now we're going to see you tomorrow again.